Hey, I'm Primitive Tim, and today I'm going to show you guys how to take some feathers, some cane, and make the easiest and simplest Eastern 2 Fletch arrow right here. At the very end, we're going to shoot these arrows and see how they fly. Now, for this type of fletching, I like to use thinner feathers. So these right here are fine. These come from the tail feather, and also these are good too, right here. And you'll notice the vein on these are real thin. And that's kind of what I'm looking for, is I'm looking for that thinner vein. And that's just going to make things a little bit easier for us. And it's going to make things go a little bit faster as far as arrow flight goes. Now the first step here is, of course, you need your cane. And I'm going to have another video here with a link right over here to see how you gather and prepare cane to be used as an arrow shaft. And so first you need this arrow shaft. Then you need your feathers. And to prepare your feathers, it's really simple actually. I'm going to use this pair, I like these two better. So these two right here are basically identical. And you'll notice the vein on this one is a little bit longer. So I'm going to dig my thumbnail in there, I'm going to pinch it, and so it leaves a little bit of a mark. I can take my flint flake right here, and I can go and just start cutting that. Now I'm not going to take the whole thing off here, because I'm just gonna keep with the more traditional methods of leaving a little bit on the other side here with the Eastern 2 Fletch. So do that, take that off. Ooh, feathers are getting away. Now of course I want to do it in the same place with this other feather. Alright, so now I've got two identical looking feathers, and these feathers are done exactly the same. Everything about them is basically identical. So the next step here is, I have my nock right here, and what I want to do is I want to split the shaft down the center from the nock. So here's my self nock here, and what I want to do is I want to split the shaft. So I'm going to take a very thin piece of flint and find the sharpest edge, and the thinner the better. And I want to insert it in that nock. Now it's going to stick in here a little bit, and once I get it there, I want to look on both sides and make sure that it's in the very center, because if it's not in the center, then your fletching is going to be a little bit lopsided, which isn't a huge deal if it's not in the exact center, but it's ideally we want it in the center. So that's what we're going to do here. So once I have it where I like it, I'm going to take a stick or something and just gently pop it in there. As it goes in, it's going to start to split the shaft. Oh, there we go. Perfect. So you see here, it's starting to split the shaft on both sides, nice and even. And so once it splits, you're good. You can pretty much just push that flake in on your own. And runoff is not very likely on these shafts, so just go ahead and push that flake down. And then once you get it down to here, I like to split it all the way down to the node here. So there we go. Now it's all the way down to the node. Perfect. Now it generally doesn't want to split past the node anyway, but if you have your node like right here, that's fine. You can actually, that's normally how I do it. And so if your node is right there, you can put your flake right into the node and it'll split past that and everything will be fine. So now is where the feathers come in. And I always like dealing with the feathers a little more than a shaft. So I'm going to take my feathers, these two feathers that I did, and I'm going to take this one and turn it this way. So it's going to be opposite, facing the opposite way as the other one. And then I'm going to match up the vein of the feather. And so now it looks like a whole feather again. So I'm going to keep those overlapped like that. And then I'm going to just slide them right down into the empty pith of the shaft. I'm going to slide them down until there's, you know, like half an inch or so past the knock. So just a little tad bit more. That'd be good. So once they're in there, I want to make sure that the vein of the feather is inside of the shaft. So I'll pull that over a little bit and check both sides again. I'll pretty up these feathers as well. The next step is sinew wrapping. So I'm going to use this deer. This is actually whitetail deer sinew, and so I'm going to use this to wrap the fletching here. Now I like to first line these up, and you want to push these back together so that they look as if they were never split in the first place. Because when you split it, you want them to come back exactly matched how they were. So I'm just going to sinew this back together. And before I sinew it, what I like to do is I like to take just any rough rock. Usually it's a flake that isn't very useful for anything else. And I like to just rough up this area a little bit. That way the sinew has somewhere to shrink into and the little fibers can get intertwined in there. That'll just make it a little bit more solid, I guess. And so I'll do up and down strokes, and then I'll cut across and do quick across strokes. Just so that it's not real smooth like the rest of the shaft. Because you want that sinew to have something to grab into when it shrinks. Alright. Now we can start wrapping this up with some sinew. And we're almost done. Alright, so I've got a good length piece right here. And I'm just going to match these. You want to match these up together so that they fit back how they were before they were split. So I'm going to start wrapping this up and tie it off. Perfect. Now you see how this is kind of far down from the knock? I'm going to put another piece of sinew across here, but while this one's drying, I'm going to go ahead and sinew below the fletching as well, because I don't want this split to continue down the shaft, because if it does, any jarring that occurs could cause that to split even more. So as I'm shooting it into targets and stuff, I don't want this split to grow. So this way, that'll keep everything nice and tight, and it won't continue to split. Also, the reason I like these thinner feathers is because they fit through this slit really well. With the thicker feathers, like the wing feathers, sometimes when they get pressed in by the split shaft, they'll want to do this weird curvy thing, and that's not going to be very helpful for arrow flight. So that's why I like to use these thinner feathers. And thinner feathers seem to be less valuable, and so they're easier to get a hold of. You know, everybody wants wing feathers. So these thin feathers are a lot easier to get your hands on than the wing feathers. Alright, so let's see here. Let's get that sinew undone here. Ugh. Sometimes I actually tie knots in them. That's bad. Alright. So I'm going to rough it up here as well. Just to give this sinew a little bit of just a little bit of texture to grab into. Also, for some reason, I always wrap from front to back. I don't know why. It just seems to make more sense to me to do it that way. So this is your fletching, and it's pretty much done. All you have to do now is wait and let it dry. And so that, of course, is the worst part, because you just made this new arrow. You want to shoot it. But of course you must wait. Now, one thing that I normally don't do with mine personally, but you can do it, is cover the sinew in some kind of resin or something. Some people use super glue. Of course, that's not primitive at all. So make some kind of resin that you can cover this in, and that'll be nice. That not only will keep it tight around here, but it will also waterproof it. Alright, so I actually made 2 arrows. This arrow right here, this is the arrow that I showed you guys how to make, and this is one I made before, but as you can see they're very similar arrows. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to flight test them and make sure that they fly well, there's no like waving around, because we may need to adjust the feathers and shorten them a little bit. So we're going to go ahead and do that and see how they fly. Ooh. Alright, so we noticed this arrow right here, this is the one that I showed you guys how to make, and it's not flying quite right. Now the first thing I like to do when I'm correcting the fletching here, because it's wagging too much, I like to just go ahead and shorten it a little bit. And so what you do here is you take a log like this and you just run it along the edge here, and that's going to singe the feathers here and make them a little bit shorter. And so I'll do that along one side, and then just take off all the little crunchies. And it actually makes the feather look a little bit rugged, but it doesn't really mess it up at all. But it looks cool. It looks really cool. I like it. It gives it a very primitive look. And then I'll just go ahead and do that along the other side here. And you want to do this pretty evenly, because if you do them unevenly, that kind of defeats the purpose of doing this in the first place. Alright, so I've shortened it a little bit. There's a few spots where I want to even it out at, so I'll just go ahead and do that. Alright, it's looking pretty rugged, but we're going to go ahead and shoot it and see how it flies. Alright, so these fletchings, they did really well after I trimmed them back a little bit, and it flew pretty much perfectly. So I'm going to go ahead and take my 2 arrows and do some shorter shots between like 5 and 15 yards. Now I hope you guys make some of these arrows, go out, shoot them, and it's worth a try, I promise. And you might end up liking them better than the more common 3 fletch, and I guarantee you it's a lot less work and they shoot very well. Now make sure you subscribe, because I'm also going to be doing a thatching video on this thing right here. So we've got about maybe a quarter of the way thatched. So we're going to be finishing that up, and of course I'll be filming that and showing how that's done. And until next time, whether it's shooting arrows, making arrows out of totally natural materials, or if you're bird watching, try to find a new way to appreciate nature.